So we have a regional development minister and now we have a regionalisation minister, and they're two different people. When I hear that word regionalisation, I think of the word my mates used to use at high school, flocky knocky hillafenilification, which is one of the world's longest words. It's an actual Latin term and it simply means something that we regard as meaningless. So it does seem meaningless, I think, for some people unless they can put some meat on the bones of what regionalisation means.
Well, today on our look at agriculture and regional affairs, we're joined by Rikki Lambert, and we're going to discuss a couple of topics. One, regionalisation, but before we do, the opening today of a livestock effluent facility in Mount Gambier.
Yeah, we were very excited, Wayne, when we got this press release a little while ago and an invitation to the grand opening of the effluent pit at Mount Gambier Sale Yards. We thought we've really made it in the media world when we've got an invitation to that. It's bound to be a big turnout, lots of effluent people there.
Well, maybe somebody like Tony Paston, the local member, making a big splash at that particular event. But let's move from a topic about funding into our regions. Barnaby Joyce might have maybe opened that effluent facility, but he's chosen to hand that over to somebody else.
Yeah, he's passed the Buckholz here. He's gone and got Scott Buckholz, the Assistant Minister, to turn up for that one. Now, Scott comes from Beaudesert, just behind the Gold Coast, and that is a heavy cattle grazing area, so he's probably got some good context and probably a few effluent stories of his own he could share.
Now, this is a regional development project, and we asked the question yesterday about these sorts of things. I mean, the federal government has an opportunity to move towards putting more facilities, more infrastructure and programs to up our agriculture to $100 billion. So here we have the situation emerging where we have a regionalisation minister, and the National Farmers Federation have made a comment about the appointment of Bridget McKenzie in that role. They seem very positive about it.
Yeah, I'm struggling, Wayne, still with the mental picture of Barnaby Joyce making a big splash at the effluent pit. But in all seriousness, Barnaby is the Minister for Regional Development. He took that over from Michael McCormack. So we have a regional development minister and now we have a regionalisation minister, and they're two different people. When I hear that word regionalisation, I think of the word my mates used to use at high school, flocky knocky hillafenilification, which is one of the world's longest words. It's an actual Latin term and it simply means something that we regard as meaningless. So it does seem meaningless, I think, for some people unless they can put some meat on the bones of what regionalisation means.
Well, it's interesting. The National Farmers Federation tried to do so with their release, and in response, Tony Maher said the recommendations of the regionalisation agenda challenged governments to direct the same level of resources for the place-based development of regional centres as is in place for areas like Western Sydney. Now, what he's talking about there are specific geographical locations that are going to receive funding by the government to make them into precincts, if you like, or manufacturing precincts. Now, they talk then about identifying 20 place-based regional development precincts in our regional areas. But that's under this guise of regionalisation. Regional development again. The two of them are, again, very closely entwined. It appears we might be having two ministers for the sake of one.
Well, two ministers that are talking about the same thing, and they can probably just go, well, you go to that one and I'll go to that one. But some cynics might say, well, regionalisation could be another word for pork barrelling. If we're going to have 20 place-based investments, could that be an opportunity to target electorates that certain parties want to win at future elections?
And that's a very good point, because if regionalisation doesn't include a wide variety of geographical areas, and just 20 areas have been identified, and the NFF says that they're supporting this, then are we in the end leaving small communities or maybe smaller towns or areas that perhaps don't have a political advantage? Are we going to see those geographical regions left behind?
Absolutely right, Wayne. I think what's happening is the tree change is on and people are moving to country areas, or the vine change or the coastal change. But are they going to the small towns? City people probably wanting a Ballarat or a Bendigo-like experience where it's like a city like Melbourne. You've got a lot of the amenities, but I think we want to be talking about the benefits of living in a Stawell or Eden Hope in the South Australia border region and getting into those communities, because there's a great lifestyle to be had there as well.
I think right across our areas, you'd like to think that where we've got resources going into infrastructure, water and so on, that say in places like Lameroo. We've got a great need for a lot of homes to be built as we see employment opportunities in the potato and carrot and onion growing industries, those horticulture industries. So I'm concerned that we may find that there is an agenda that follows maybe the ministers. They're both Nationals ministers. We note that there are no Nationals in South Australia. They are in Victoria and New South Wales. But I would wonder whether or not there'll be a disadvantage to states that don't necessarily have a Bridget McKenzie from Victoria or a Barnaby Joyce from New South Wales.
Well, the real concern here is the word regionalisation might be a shorter form of the word regional centralisation, and that would be a real concern. I think if regionalisation can actually mean benefits to be felt by the smallest of towns in the regions and the remote areas as well, then I think it's a good thing.
All right, it's a very interesting position that's been taken, the NFF's commentary today, and thanks, Rikki, for bringing your update on it. It all seems like a lot of Latin to me.